Breaking news coming in on the broadcast. Hours to go for the Alsaka summit between Trump and Putin, and there is a cryptic post that's come in from Donald Trump. In his typical style, he has put out that message on social media. 2 words. That's what he's put out. High stakes, and with a bunch of exclamation marks. That's Donald Trump for you, telling what really lies ahead in terms of this meeting. It is high stakes, and that's exactly what needs to now be spoken about. In fact, let's get in my colleague Arjun Samar Mahindran, who joins us for more on this. Now, Arjun, at the end of the day, what needs to be kept in mind is the stakes really couldn't have been higher for Russia, for Ukraine, for America, for EU, for NATO, for everyone. And I think that's exactly why this summit is keeping the world on the edge.
That's absolutely right, Gauri. The stakes just could not be higher. And Donald Trump, in fact, reiterating that just moments before he actually leaves the White House and the base Edmonton for Alaska's Anchorage. He's stated to land there around 11 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And he'll proceed to meet his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Now, the meeting will take place anywhere between 1 a.m. to 3 p.m., we are told to believe. And the leaders will be meeting initially with just their translators behind closed doors. The duration of the meeting is not being confirmed as yet. It will go on as in how things actually progress between the leaders. And this will be followed by a detailed joint statement by both the leaders and their teams that are accompanying him. Now, the leaders here are also being accompanied by senior officials from the administrations, and mind you, the number of these senior officials is same from the US as it is from the Russia, just like their security details about which we told you just a short while ago. Back to you, Gauri.
Right, and Arjun, while we talk about these high stakes that are there, one can speculate whether or not there'll actually be a communique or not, because the last time Trump and Putin met, there was actually no communique when they met in Helsinki. So which is why the world really is on the edge, and the stakes could not be any higher. Stay with us. I want to now walk our viewers through some more news that's coming in with regards to how things are actually unfolding. Viewers, in terms of the stage being set for the Trump-Putin meeting, in fact, shortly is when Donald Trump is set to depart for Alaska, and a mega meeting will take place in the next few hours. Team of negotiators that will fly with Trump has also come out, and let's get Arjun back with us to talk more about what this could mean. Now, Arjun, the list that we are seeing in terms of who all that are going to accompany Donald Trump is going to be very interesting, very important. Walk us through who all will be part of the American delegation.
Well, some really notable names here. We've got Secretary of State Marco Rubio to begin with. Then we've got the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And here I'd also like to mention Scott Bessent's latest statement, in fact, that came in just only a few hours ago, where he also talked about possible additional secondary sanctions against India. These talks do not yield any consolidated outcomes, as you were mentioning. Apart from that, Howard Lutnick and John Ratcliffe will also be accompanying the U.S. president. While on the other side of the aisle, Gauri, Putin's advisor Yuri Yashikov, we've got Sergei Lavrov and other high-level officials coming in from the Russian side as well. Gauri, back to you.
I think Steve Witkoff being part of this delegation also tells you that, or in fact is hinting to the possibility that it may not just be about Russia-Ukraine, it may be much more than that. In fact, many people speculate that when Trump and Putin meeting will actually take place, which is set to be the next couple of hours, the two leaders may look to chart out a bigger course and draft something more than just specifically the war.
That's absolutely correct. There are multiple facets to this war, Gauri. Ukraine definitely being the biggest and the most prominent, but there's other facets like global shipping routes, international trade, international energy prices, border security, and multiple other issues that will also be, of course, under the anvil of discussion at this all-important meet in Alaska's Anchorage.
We leave it there. Arjun joining us with that update, viewers, giving us the latest updates that are coming in of that meeting. That, as I said, the world is on the edge with hours to go for that meeting. I'm also going to now play out the soundbite of Donald Trump. Those live visuals are likely to come anytime now, where he will be at the joint base in Andrews. From there, he will be flying out to Alaska, where that meeting will take place. NDTV has been on top of this entire summit, getting you minute-by-minute detail and every aspect of that. But first up, let's play out exactly what is it that Donald Trump said ahead of that crucial meeting with his Russian counterpart.
With President Putin. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along.
So in typical Trump style, Donald Trump has already threatened that if there is no substantial deal on the table, that he's going to come out with severe consequences for Vladimir Putin if he doesn't agree to end the war in Ukraine. Remember, that frustration of Donald Trump has actually led to some decisions that we in India have been decoding, and NDTV has been the first to talk about. But let's also now bring in my colleague Maha Siddiqui, who's at Anchorage on ground zero, to tell us what really are going to be some of the key areas that this meeting will focus on, and some of the possibilities that lie ahead in terms of potential outcomes. Let's play out that report that Maha has filed.
So what are the expectations of the two leaders who are meeting in Anchorage? What is it that they expect out of this meeting? Well, Moscow has already said that the memorandum that they put out in June with regard to a peace deal with Ukraine stands, which means that they want the Ukrainian army size to be reduced. They do not want Ukraine to join the NATO and the territory that Russia has been able to wrest control of in Ukraine. Over the 3.5 years of the war and previously the annexation of Crimea, this region remains with Russia. All these demands are unacceptable to Ukraine, and anticipating the worst, that is a land swap possibly, Ukraine has already said that it will be unacceptable to it, especially considering the fact that they have been sidelined and are not party to this discussion. And that's the reason we have seen the toning down by US President Donald Trump of the expectation from this meeting, and also saying that it is possible that the meeting in Anchorage on Friday is followed by a meeting with the Ukrainian side as well as the European partners. President Putin will also hope that he steps out of the meeting with reduced sanctions on Moscow, the sanctions that were imposed by US after the war in Ukraine. For the American president, the expectations could be personal in nature. He perhaps believes that if he's instrumental in being able to facilitate a peace in Ukraine and an end to the war, then his position for a Nobel Prize will be strengthened. Now, his administration has been open about this desire of the president, and we've also seen lately how President Trump has been talking and boasting about the number of ceasefires that he has been able to facilitate. There's also speculation about the possibility of an economic deal involving the critical mineral sector in Alaska between Russia and the US. However, some of the senior leaders are calling this highly speculative. Alaska's largest city, Anchorage, is all set to host a highly anticipated, a high-stakes and a high-profile meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in the joint base Elmendorf-Richardson here in Anchorage. Now, while the city is abuzz with activity, it's also feeling a bit overwhelmed with all the hotels here booked out, as well as all the cab and taxi services being completely booked. Meanwhile, the Federal Aviation Administration has placed temporary flight restrictions on Anchorage at the time that the two top leaders of the world are going to be around or in Anchorage. The flight restrictions are likely to be from 9:30 a.m. local time on Friday to about 6:45 p.m. local time. That is after the meeting has ended and the two leaders have departed from Anchorage. However, this is not likely to impact commercial flights. Now, it is expected that President Vladimir Putin will land in Anchorage around 11 a.m. on Friday. President Trump is going to be here about 50 minutes before him. At around 10 a.m. is when he's supposed to land in Anchorage. The meeting between the two leaders is supposed to start at 11:30 a.m. and it is expected that there will be a joint press conference at 3:30 p.m., though there is no confirmation yet on whether this will be a joint presser or a presser by President Trump alone.
All right, so Maha Siddiqui, viewers, is on ground zero. She is at Anchorage covering that meeting. And what you're seeing right now are those live images, live visuals coming in where Donald Trump is set to embark on Air Force One very soon and head out to Alaska. Hours to go for that all-important meeting. And let's now tell you the kind of preps that are happening on ground, the preparations that have turned Anchorage into a fortress. Now, American and Russian officials have been working side by side in terms of the security arrangements that have gone in for this summit to actually now take place so soon. They've been able to turn this around. Let's walk you through some of the other arrangements that have been made. It's in about a week's time is when both sides, the American and Russian delegations, from a security point of view, have turned it around in preparation for the summit that will take place. Now, look at the kind of effort that has gone in. We're just getting you some broad detail for you to understand the significance of this summit. Hundreds of agents have been flown in from across the US for this. This is the first time that in over a decade that the Russian president is coming on American soil. We've spoken at length about the importance of Alaska, but here the kind of security arrangements that have gone in, where motorcade SUVs have been airlifted from across the US for this place. The summit venue will be closed to public. It's going to be heavily guarded from both sides. Both leaders will insist, and their security entourage will insist on massive security arrangements. Airspace will be fortified. There will be fortified gates, and airspace will also be closed. There will be symmetrical security that will take place on both sides. The expectation is that the meeting will actually be taking place in heavily guarded areas under a garrison, and nothing will be visible to the naked eye. Anyhow, Alaska is one such area where things are, given the fact that it is not very heavily populated, you feel that it is not the same as any of the other large metropolitan cities in America itself. Lastly, all movements will be choreographed for maximum protection. This is, we're telling you about what all has gone in terms of the preparations for the Alaska summit. Let's now play out this report that tells you much more in terms of what all has happened and why this summit is unprecedented. Let's play out that report.
This is no ordinary summer in Anchorage. The tourists are here, yes, but so are the world's most elite security teams. In just hours, US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin will meet on American soil. For the first time in years, and the stage, a Cold War outpost less than 1,000 miles from Russia. According to a report, their preparations began with a phone call to an Anchorage realtor, not from tourists but from the United States Secret Service. Their request? Secure every bed, every car for an operation unlike any other. Soon after, the Russian consulate called with the very same need. With only a week to prepare, hundreds of Secret Service agents have descended on the city. Hotels full, rental car lots cleared, every motorcade movement mapped down to the last turn signal. The report suggests that the rules are strict and equal. 10 US agents outside a room, then 10 Russian agents on the other side. Body for body, gun for gun. Even the translators matched in number and in placement. The base, a fortress of controlled airspace, fortified gates, and instant military backup. will keep the public far away from what's expected to be one of the most sensitive meetings of the decade. For now, in Alaska's largest city, 2 residents, 2 armies of protectors, and a world holding its breath. Bureau Report, Vishal Vivek for NDTV World.
All right, viewers, let's now get Professor Anuradha Chinoy. She's a former dean and chairperson of the Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies at the JNU. Thank you so much, Professor Anuradha, for joining us and speaking to me ahead of that crucial summit. We'll also try and connect with David Sofer, who's a strategist joining us from America. It's really early there. But Professor Chinoy, high stakes lie ahead for this meeting. Donald Trump has actually tweeted that. But the world is on the edge, given the fact that many want to temper their expectations simply because many feel that there may not be any meeting of minds between how things stand right now.
That's right. There are, on the one hand, expectations, but I think we have to remember for any major peace deal, there has to be a lot of groundwork and preparation between what they call the Sherpas and the experts beforehand to understand what each person wants. And after that, it is a stage when leaders meet. Here, the opposite is being done. The leaders are meeting when clearly right now there's no agreement between what Russia wants and what the US, if it represents a collective West, and Ukraine, what they want. Because Russia's terms are very clear, which Putin has said since 2024, that they will not accept Ukraine in NATO. Is Trump willing to give that in writing? That the 4 provinces that they had taken over, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, and in the Donbass, and their administrative territory, which have become part of the Russian Federation and part of the Russian Constitution, Russia is not going to return that. And NATO cannot expand, and that they would like some kind of demilitarization. So in all these, and the other important thing is that Russia is winning on the ground very clearly. Just in the last 1 week, they took over 21
Right. So when you have
kilometers.
military wins under your belt and you sit on the negotiating table, and it is your peace formula that is actually being spoken about and discussed on the negotiating table, what are the odds of Vladimir Putin walking out what he feels is anything less than a victory?
I think Vladimir Putin is very keen to have good relations with the United States and leave Europe out of it. He's keen for the restarting of arms deals, arms negotiation, so that there's some amount of disarmament, because the 2 countries are so heavily nuclear military arms. So he's keen on economic relations with the United States, and I think he might try and tempt Mr. Trump with very big deals. Russia is very rich with resources, whether it's in the future of rare earths or whether it's currently, which are known, uranium, titanium, oil, etc. So he would offer. So I expect something that maybe their 2 embassies will start working, direct flights can start, trust building. But the big ticket on actual ceasefire, I mean, the best possibility that I could think of is maybe they would have a timetable. That maybe Putin would give in and say, okay, we'll have a partial ceasefire in sectoral, a part of the northern area where Sumy, etc., is, where they're advancing, a ceasefire there. But they might give a timetable that you go back to your allies.
Hold your thought there, Professor Chinoy. Let me also then rope in David Sofer as well, joining us on the broadcast to talk more about what could be the potential outcomes that the world needs to be prepared for. One is that, we've done a lot of back and forth in terms of whether or not there'll actually be a deal on the table. What happens in the case that there is a land swap discussion that takes place, given the fact that Trump has also said he wants Zelensky eventually in a second summit that may happen soon. All these are a lot of ifs and buts that are there and up in the air, which is why many feel that there could be less answers than the number of questions that exist. Mr. David, then that's a question I pose to you, which is that many are tempering their expectations, but at the same time, with both Trump and Putin keen to now re-establish a more stronger Russia-America relationship, should everything be viewed from that prism, that a US-Russia relationship is what they are looking at to strengthen, and the outcomes need to be viewed from that prism?
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm delighted to be on today, this morning. What is really happening here is there is not a magic bullet, or in Trump's case, a golden bullet to come out of this meeting. This is very much a discovery meeting where a lot of negotiations from the Russian side, in our view, will happen. And they will talk about various things that need to happen for not only for a ceasefire, but for a lasting peace solution. So, this really has to do with strengthening global safety, strengthening Ukraine and EU relations as well. And so it's a very important thing. So it's beneficial to the world, not just America.
So are you that an outcome will actually come out of this meeting?
Do I think, of course the meeting will have an outcome, but now what that outcome will be is it's yet to be decided. So there are a lot of other steps in this process. A lot of things will have to go back to President Zelensky. There will be definitely a outline and various demands from the Russian side, and we'll have to see how that unfolds. So that will be the outcome. But do I think that personally? Do I think that there will be a golden bullet or a ceasefire or anything like that straight away? I think that we're not quite there yet.
I think the world is keeping its fingers crossed, but most people realize, in fact, all people realize that there is no silver bullet, most certainly not to end the war, which is so nuanced. And viewers, we're going to play out those detailed reports that NDTV has been telling you and preparing, which is about what really are those 5 geography and 5 locations which are central to this war. Why those particular areas, whether it's Donetsk or Luhansk or Zaporizhia, as it is being mentioned, are central to this entire war, and neither side is likely to give that up.